welcome to all of you in this afternoon, very sweaty session. Do you know that temperature rises when you go up? So if it's unbearable, you have to go down. You can sit on the more down or just open shirts or whatever. Okay, so welcome to this session on collaboration. Oh, no, it has another name. It has Partnerships in Biodiversity Conversation. This is truly my subject because this is the reason why I founded the Sustainable Scale-up Foundation. We build networks around innovation that we scale for solutions to global challenges. So this is really a topic to my heart. Before we start, I would like to introduce a wonderful panel on the stage. And here we go. Let me first introduce Michael O'Brien Onyika. Michael, where are you? Big applause. Thank you very much. Michael, he is an executive vice president at Nature for Justice, a network organization for nature-based solutions. His track record is enormous and global, within a wide range of subjects such as conservation, renewable energy, human rights, democracy, good governance, sustainable development, justice, and so on. And he is a specialist in establishing sustainable business strategies, a lot of S's. Yes. And partnerships and securing substantial funding. Welcome. Then we have another wonderful person, Thirza Loffeld, please join the stage. Thirza is the co-founder of WildHub, probably familiar with some of you because this is a member-led global organization for conservation professionals. She also has an impressive career. I just looked it up. You studied gorillas and chimpanzees with Jane Goodall. Well, the institute, and you've been working on community-based conservation development projects in Africa. You have been working on capacity development projects worldwide. You're also a lecturer, an advisor, public speaker, and a coach. Welcome. Yes. Then we have Mike Odenhoven. Mike, welcome. Yeah. Mike is the CEO of Sumthing. It's a platform where you give to nature and can also see the results of your giving. It's Europe's first steward-owned nature tech platform. I like that a lot. And his track record is digital. And you use it for your mission, which is to restore nature by building a tech platform for regenerative economy. So welcome you as well. And then we have our fourth member, that's Martin Spitholt. Hello, Lars. Martin is, together with me, the executive director of the Sustainable Scale-up Foundation, a company that builds networks around solutions to global challenges. Your track record is also digital, Mike, yeah, in tech and entrepreneurship. You have, especially in speech recognition, you've even set up and sold successfully a company, and you all know all about the importance of collaboration. Yes. So, but before we start, I want to show you a little video. He's not here. It's from Laurens Gomes. He is a bioregional transitions lead at Metabolic, and he has a little message for us to speed the discussion up. Please show me the message.
Hi, my name is Laurens Gomes, and I'm bioregional transitions lead at Metabolic. I'm very honored to open this session for you, and unfortunately I can't be there because I'm in Mexico currently working on a bioregional transition right there. I've been invited to open this session as a conservation scaling specialist. And I would like to talk to you about that because for me, scaling is not at all about a heroic act. It is actually a very humbling thing. And the reason for that is that real scale starts when you're ready to give up control and not to disappear as a person or as an initiative, but to create space for something much larger than ourselves to materialize. So therefore, scaling is not at all about bigger projects, but it's about increasing a movement and enabling a shared fabric and a joint purpose. So over the years, I've learned that scaling is something very different from growing, and both of them have a very different mindset. Growth is about expanding what's yours and what's within your span of control. Scaling, on the other hand, is about understanding what are the limiting factors to accelerating growth and accelerated growth. And usually one of those limiting factors to growth is letting go of control, or in different forms. And we should be exploring what kind of letting go is necessary for scaling. But letting go of control usually summarizes that the best. So it's about letting go so that something bigger can evolve. My favorite way of scaling by far is weaving. And for me, weaving is the new scaling. Weaving starts with the belief that most of the solution is already there. It's just not within one person or within one organization. So it's not about inventing the next big thing, but instead it's about connecting partial solutions in a systemic and fragmented way. I was a reviewer of the Basis Earth Fund AI for Climate and Nature, which was a grand challenge with a big reward of $100 million. And in that process, I can't say all the secrets, but I created two piles. One was for proposals focused on the own tool with, let's say, a business as usual partnerships. And that was just, on one end of it. On the other hand, there were also proposals that started from an outside in, with the question of what is my role in the bigger picture? And because that picture is much bigger than the own span of control, that always led to unconventional partnerships. Unconventional partnerships that were truly transformative. And that created a second pile for review. And I believe that how this conference is set up is really gonna fill that pile with ideas of unconventional partnerships and transformative collaboration. So for me, weaving is not a metaphor, it's a method, and it's real, and it's about resilience and regeneration. So I'd like to end with a practice. In conservation, we far too often use words like we must, we need to, and we have to. And those are used to stress the urgency of our work. For me, that's a bit problematic, and I'd like to invite you to see if we can use other words for the same thing that we mean. The problem is that we in those words are very often undefined. So it removes ourselves and our initiatives from how we speak. Then must and have to also make it an inaction. Can we change that with want? I want. Is that the same as what I want to say? And wanting can be a pathway to doing. So I want is about owning your intent. And from I, you can move to my team, a place, and a partnership. So with that, I'd like to round off and just express that I'm really looking forward to learning from what emerges from this conference, and count on me and many other weavers to be part of your future. Thank you.
Yeah. This is a very important message, actually, because I understand this, and this is also the reason, like I said, why I founded Sustainable Scale Up Foundation, is that on the one hand, you need diversity, you need companies, you need innovation. But if all those companies want to grow themselves, then they're also competing to each other. And you can also see this in the NGO world. I mean, we all want to do the good thing, but at the same time, if we are longing for that big fish or that money or subsidy, we're also like competing. So what Laurens is saying, basically, if we should not be thinking as if you have something, and you can see it also in the Netherlands, the focus is only on making unicorns, making some companies grow to $1 million companies. But it's more about what Laurens said, it's weaving. Stay who you are, know your strength, look for partnerships, and then strive for so also innovate, but not in competition. So I want to try not to speak in we must and we and we need. And before I go to the panel, finally, I also want to involve you as the audience. We are going to use Mentimeter. Yes. If you would please use your phone, normally it's not allowed, here it's allowed, and scan the QR codes. Then you'll find some questions and I would like you to answer them. And the first question is, are you an NGO? So we know approximately about the people in the room. No. Does it work? No, doesn't work. Oh, then we do differently if it doesn't work. Go to the next slide, Dave. Thank you for all collaborating here. And then doesn't work. Then we do it differently. Then you should just raise your hands. Who is an NGO? Well, approximately, I think 50%. Yeah. And do you recognize in the story that you'll all be competing with each other for the big fish? Who recognize this? Raise hands. That's not that much people. So collaboration is okay. So I want to ask to the panel, and I start with Thirza. Oh, sorry. Yes, I want you to use the mic. This is collaboration. Do they work? Perfect.
My voice is not that loud, so
sorry. Yeah. So Thirza, well, you breathe collaboration because with your yes, with your network, I was told you have a community with 6,000 members over 60 countries. That is a lot. You have seen the message of Laurens. What is your opinion on this matter? And maybe also from your experience on community-led organizations, how can we move to more collaborative efforts instead of focusing on ourselves to grow?
Thanks, Sonja, and thanks for inviting me here. So yeah, indeed, WildHub is now with that many members, actually across 160 different countries. So you can imagine the cultural diversity that we have in our community. Yeah, it's an interesting question, interesting concept. I think before maybe the term weaving was a bit more mainstream, we were already doing that. WildHub is kind of generated from this thought, this vision where the knowledge is already out there. We just need to find it, and we need to connect people to find that knowledge that they need. So it's about that, the knowledge exchange, about not reinventing the wheel, but it's also about supporting people socially, because we're literally sometimes working on our own little islands, right? And I think what I've seen in WildHub over the last 5 years or so is that people, first of all, in an online space like that, a community like that, they need to know how they can contribute, but also what is done with their contribution. How are they recognized for it? And whether there's any negative backlash potentially. as you see sometimes at social media platforms, unfortunately, these days, right? So psychological safety is a real, I would say, like essential to the sharing of challenges, problems, but also solutions, and the start of building those relationships and the trust that comes after that. But to put that to the test, I actually asked the community this question of how to move more from competition to collaboration. So I posted this on WildHub last weekend. I was very surprised that, immediately, although it was Saturday, people started responding, Michael included. And it was really lovely. So I'll try to do their voices justice here. The few barriers that they mentioned, the major barriers, was competition, funding, ego-driven leadership, siloed systems or structures, and also kind of the short-term thinking, which can kind of link across those. They also had some really positive ways of looking at things. So if we get like the space to build relationships and build that trust, it can really do wonders for the collaboration. Also transparency was mentioned there, and community-led approaches. So I think to answer your question, I would say invest in those spaces. So invest in spaces like this today where we come together, we can start building relationships. And then also invest in spaces where we continue to this conversation, for example, and maintaining the relationships and even implement the collaboration. And a very powerful tool in my experience is online communities, because then you can communicate from many to many instead of just me emailing you, Sonja, and the knowledge will remain between us.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone have a question? And if you do, please, I will throw this to you. Do you have a question? Oh, sorry. Yeah. This is so true. So you refer to safety as very important, and trust, because we've seen this in our project of Nature First as well. So when we started, we barely knew each other. So we first had to sniffle. And now after a couple of years, it feels very safe. And now finally you want to get the fruits. And now the project is over. That's such a waste because we invested a lot in relationships. And that was the best part of our whole project, to be honest. So yeah, I recognize that. But then still, innovation, I mean, competition and innovation is also needed, right? So it's not a bad thing, but how can you move to collective innovation? Do you have a meaning?
Well, fortunately, we're not by ourselves in our sector with this problem of how to bridge the gap from, for example, individual learning to organizational learning and also innovation. So for my PhD research, I looked across sectors and what was out there, and diversity of thought. We need to bring everyone to the table that has a stake in this, that we need in this, but not just bring them to the table. You need to enable ownership. So how to do that? And in a small way, I think in WildHub we've done that through, for example, programs like the Catalyst program. We teamed up, for example, early careers or career switches. Even veterinarians, really wanted to enter the conservation space. We teamed them up with a coach. They were introduced to experts and they co-generated content. So it's again about moving this conversation from just an email or like a video call as we had between us to actually publish that on, we're an open access platform. So 6,000 members can actually benefit from these insights, right? Plus, it creates like a win-win for also the Catalyst, because they start building network, they know of opportunities, they can progress in a career, they're acknowledged for their work, and the expert is too, although they might donate only 20-minute, 30-minute for this interview. They are, their name is acknowledged there, their insights are acknowledged. So things like that, where people can actually co-create, co-lead. And I think it's important that, we need to not just bring people to the table. Like I said, I think they need to steer it, they need to have the ways to steer it.
Yeah, thank you. So this thing went out again, technicians. So I'll do it like this. I'm very flexible today. Because this is what happens for this conversation. Like Thirza said, it's for all of you, I mean, you're all professionals in conservation. I would definitely visit WildHub, because I saw the interaction between people and also the people from all over the world on this topic, and it was very fun to read. And then I was also curious because you also told about bring everyone to the table, especially the global south, you said. How do you bring them to the table?
Yeah, I think I put this question in this myself, so I take responsibility. But global south is a term I don't really like using that much because it polarizes global north, global south. What I meant with that was, countries where there's limited resources in terms of information, maybe access to information, finances, people power. And we do have about 50% of our members are based in countries who face those challenges more so than maybe other countries. And just providing them access to our community by not, charging membership fee, for example, helps, but it's not enough. So I think, it's important to, based on what I said before, to really make initiatives very available to them, to communicate that to them with transparency of how they can actually lead on certain initiatives. So we have, as we speak now, we have socials, WildHub socials that are actually led by one member in Zimbabwe and one member in the UK. So, to create that space, to step back, like actually Laurens said, to give up control. Like, I know the community will take care of itself. Obviously, we'll still need to hold that space. We still need to facilitate, provide the infrastructure, but it's all about those connections that people actually feel motivated. And I want to add to that, actually, if that's okay. So I think for organizations, it's something that I picked up in my work. It's not enough to just provide incentives for people to do this participation. It's also important about removing barriers. So transparent communication is one of them. And just to, I don't know if I can give one example of a member of how powerful that can be. It was Barnabas, actually, who was part of this butterfly project in Nigeria, who shared with me actually over the last week. He said, well, it was such a game changer because initially the data was all fragmented because it was collected by these different volunteers and they didn't know how their data was used, right? If it was how it contributed to the overall goal of the project. By changing the model, just tweaking it slightly, they made like a data entry log where they can assign the name to the data that was entered. So with Barnabas seeing this butterfly species, right? And they had team sessions where they went through it all to make decisions about how to analyze these data, how to process it. It actually made such a difference, he said. He said, this local assistant found this rare butterfly species that would have gone unnoticed because this person either wouldn't have felt confident that this was actually that rare species, or they might not have felt like that would be acknowledged to their, to their name, really, to be recognized. So there's a lot that we can learn from those examples, I think, in terms of transparent communication and recognition, and also how rewards are distributed. So that's both in organizations as well as communities.
It's very, Michael.
I mean, you touched on a lot of things. Some of them are things some of my colleagues will call the big elephants in the room, right? And speaking as somebody historically from the global south, I will tell you what the big elephant in the room is.
We like big elephants.
And is that when you look at conservation, majority of conservation organizations are from the global north. Now, if you want to, but that does not mean there are not many organizations in the global south. They just don't have the voice, the face, the access to funding as much as those in the global north. So if we want to move towards improve, better, increase collaboration, our colleagues in the global north need to make tough decisions, which is to begin to set up things like KPIs that says our measure of growth as ex-organization in the Netherlands is that in the next 5 years, our partner in Philippines would have grown by 25%, we shrink by 25%.
That's a nice
That
one.
should
That
be
is
the
a nice
measure
one.
of progress. If not, it wouldn't change. And that's what I personally have done in my little space. When I was head of Conservation International for Africa, it's a big responsibility. We are not a grant-making organization, but I was moving close to $150 million a year. I thought, okay, I'm not gonna increase offices across Africa. I can do that if I want, but why the hell would I do that? We took a conscious decision to improve the resilience of other organizations, national, subnational organizations within the continent. I ended up granting out 65% of my revenue, became an informal grant-making organization because our KPIs was to, part of our KPI was to see improved resilience amongst local organizations over a time period, and it worked wonders. Last thing I want to say is it's not actually being nice. It made perfect business sense. Again, concrete example. We started assessing the Global Environmental Facility, the GEF. You know, there is the Green Climate Fund, the GCF. Now, if you need to move fast, quickly, and at scale, no single organization, I don't care how great you are, no single organization can move fast enough and at scale to address at the required level the current climate challenge. Therefore, you need to partner with others. Now, if you want to do it the way you've been doing it, like Albert Einstein said, if you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. Yeah. And that's part of the reason we are here, right? So I was able to assess an $89 million GEF project in Angola simply because I partner with Angolan organizations. My organization had no Portuguese language capability for our Africa Field Division. So if I wanted to do it by myself, I would have had to wait 3 years to 5 years to build up that Portuguese language capability, Angolan national context capability. It drags on and on. But by changing the approach, the modus operandi, by working with local Angolan organizations, together with them, that gave confidence to the Angolan government to approve for us to approach the GEF on behalf of Angola and assess an $89 million 8-year project to work on national parks in Angola. So it was beneficial to me as Conservation International, beneficial to the local organization, beneficial to conservation work in Angola. So it's not a nice to do, it's actually very beneficial to partner. But unless we begin to see it as a strategic need and stop seeing it as being nice to the global South, which is the majority of the current sentiment, we are nice, we can take 1 or 2 Maasai to the UNFCCC, let them wear the dress and speak. No, when you say we've managed to secure 10 delegates to the UNFCCC, we are gonna put 4 or 5 people from the global South and drop out 5 of ours. That is when we begin to collaborate on equal footing. Thanks.
I really, really like this approach. Thank you so much, because I haven't told you yet, but Michael is, I think, the most experienced in NGOs here. His resume contains over 30 years of experience in NGOs such as Amnesty International, Oxfam Novib, Greenpeace, all over the world, Africa, Iran, London. Yeah, lots of. But so to what you, if anyone has questions, by the way, please raise hands, okay? But what you're saying actually is so, because for me it resonates also, because in the Netherlands, we're always busy. We don't have the time, we don't have the people. So if we go for a project, then we only think of ourselves to do it within the organization. So, but what you're saying, when you go for a project, look for partners in the Global South and make it a KPI that you're going to let them grow and you shrink. So you have not shrink, but you have your hands free for other things. That's what you say, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't stop at that. It fundamentally changes who you are. It means that you're going to recognize that you're going to run into organizations that does not come anywhere near the capabilities you will require. Therefore, you become a capacity building organization at the same time and say, I'm going to invest X amount of resources, build up the capacity of these organizations. And another good example regarding this, my biggest challenge in the 7.5 years I was the head of Conservation International in Africa was, don't mind me, I'm not blowing steam here, but it's the truth, and I will come to that later. You hear me quoting a lot of large money. I don't go for small money because when I collaborate, part of the reason is that we can go big. Imagine a situation where you are approaching a funder as WRI. You're asking for 2 million, 5 million. Now imagine a situation where on the same project or in the same geography location, you have WRI, WWF, Conservation International, and maybe one other big player coming together to meet one single funder and saying, we are putting our resources together to put all our effort in this. You can actually ask for real big money. And the donor or the funder would expect that, right? So there is benefit to that. We had a green climate fund. Now this is another big money, 280 million for Madagascar over 8 years. Why is it 280 million? Because as Conservation International, we offer to put 30 million. We got the European Development Bank to put 80 million. Then we went to the Green Climate Fund and said, Conservation International and the European Development Bank believe in this. We want you to match it 1-to-1. They say, oh yeah. Now, if CI had gone with them with our 15 or 30 million, they will give us 30 million, that's 60 million. But with the European Development Bank increasing the credibility and security insurance, you could actually go, we went 250 or 280 million over 8 years to do all sorts of conservation in Madagascar. So it's not just about collaboration, it's about, okay, now, sorry, I don't want to hog the mic too much. Why I was touching on this is that my biggest challenge in Madagascar then became not money, but deploying the money. Now you have small organizations that in a year they moved on a good year, they were able to move $10,000, $15,000, right? Maybe 20,000. Now I want them to spend 30,000 every month. They couldn't do that. So we had to build their capacity. We had to do skills audit, institutional audit quietly and say, you will need 2 operations directors, you will need an accountant. And we build that into the budget and increase the capacities of those
building
so that they can actually work with us as required. So that's another thing we need to consider. When you really want to do this, it's not just about saying, I will take a step back. No, it will fundamentally change the organization that you are. You need to consciously say, we are committed to actually building capacity, increasing resilience of organizations in the global South.
Yeah, well, that's a very clear message. So for all of you, if you have a nice idea of a project, think of working with organizations in the global South and not only making them great, but also invest in capacity building, which is also what we have been doing in Nature First Project, by the way, in the global South. Ha! But and what Laurens Gomes, he didn't talk about it, but I talked about him earlier. What role does ego play in this big elephant story? It's part of the elephant, eh?
I was told I'm Nigerian and they say Nigerians shout a lot. You can hear it. Okay. Ego is a big challenge, right? It's part of the big elephant in the room. I've had encounters with people, unfortunately from the Global North organization, who tells me, and I quote, "This area is mine, stay away." I'm like, what the heck? You are from X country, and this is a country like in Thailand, and you are saying this is yours. Where are you jumping out from? You know, that is mine, and I feel actually sorry for such people because there's so much to be gained by working together than remaining alone and just digging around in circles and so on. And ego is a big thing. We need to drop that ego where you are stepping out, back in your office, when you are stepping out to interact with others. And that's not just when you are interacting with other big organizations like yours, but even smaller organizations.
Yeah, also because you like when you're a founder, it's my idea and I want to let it grow, you know?
Yeah, I mean, either you are ready to do this or you are not. I would say it takes courage, it takes clarity of vision to go. If you are not ready for that, don't do it because it's going to frustrate you. Because don't forget, collaborating with others has its own challenges.
It takes longer. It's complexer.
It's complex. It takes longer to make a decision because it's not just you. You're interacting with an organization that has its own different modus operandi, and you have to find common grounds. So you build that in your planning. That instead of, when I was at Amnesty International, we used to joke, it used to take us 2 years to plan a 1-year campaign at Amnesty back then. I don't know about now. Now, if it used to take us, now imagine if we came in contact, wanted to collaborate back then with an organization like Greenpeace, that is almost semi-kamikaze, and I work for Greenpeace, I know, that wants something done quickly. They will have a big challenge because the Amnesty folks will be like, let's take this home, let's munch on it for 3 months. And Greenpeace folks will be like, are you insane? We need to do this tomorrow. So you need to understand that, and that means you may not be able to collaborate with everybody. At Nature for Justice, we have our own quiet criteria. We need to have unity of vision.
Yeah.
You know, what do we see the world looking like? Do we have, it might not be exact, but
not we need to have.
Sorry?
Not we need to have. I want. Laurens said.
Yeah. Anyway, the other area is values.
Yeah.
What values does these organizations have? I wouldn't work, even if you're bringing 6-figure, 7-figure money to the table. I wouldn't work with an organization that has no regard for their staff, for example. And you know that how staff tremble around the CEO or founder. And so, because I would know immediately implementation is going to be a big problem in the field, right?
Yeah.
When you have uncommitted staff. So, organizations that don't treat women with respect, those kind of things, simple values, and so on. So you need to have clarity of purpose, convergence of values, and so on to even begin to step into this minefield. Yeah,
but it takes a lot of time. Is there a question in this? Yeah. Oh, let's see how good I am or bad. That's reasonable. Yeah.
This working? Yes. Yep. You were talking about capacity building and, these maybe small organizations suddenly getting a lot of money and there's a lot to spend. And I was wondering, aside from the capacity building, how are, for example, certain conservation values and conservation interests also, what kind of knowledge and conservation interests are transferred from, for example, the global north to the global south, and how are those kind of dealt with when you have this massive capacity building and all of these funds going into small projects? Is that something that you've had to deal with? What kind of risks are associated with that, if it's of concern at all? But yeah, thanks. I hope that's clear.
And your question was to Michael. And Michael, please be brief because we have to move to Mike. Otherwise, he just came here for nothing, and that's not what we want. So please be brief in your answer to this young man.
That's a very good question. I think I'll answer it in a generic way, which is that you need to have several departure points. And part of that is what you are saying, that as an organization, for example, from the global north, you need to have a departure point that says, I don't know, we don't know, or I don't know as an organization, we don't know everything. For example, I've taken my wildlife team, anti-poaching team, to embed with the Khoisan of the Kalahari of Botswana, Namibia, because they are the best trackers I've ever seen in the world. They don't have PhDs, they are unknown in that conservation space, but if you get to the bottom of it, they are great trackers, and they did a lot of work training our wildlife anti-poaching team. That's what I felt we didn't have, and this community have it. And in terms of collaborating with this community, it made them feel so good that they can contribute as equal partners by teaching us, and then we brought technology that they didn't have. So you should be looking for equal relationships of that nature. That's what I would say.
That's very nice that you make a bridge yourself, Michael, because you moved to technology. And that is the bridge to Mike. Here's your mic, Mike. Ah. There's two mics.
Mike goes from mic to mic. Yeah.
6 mics, but okay. So Mike, can you please tell the audience what you do and how you're using tech? What is your platform all about?
Yeah, so our platform is basically giving those kind of organizations the tools to communicate what they do with the money that they receive, right? These small grassroots organizations, giving them the most modern suite of tools to share the results. And I think, yeah, maybe riffing on that, like we talked about communities, we talked about connection, we talked about sharing. And at least in my mind, like the best way that we humans have invented to do that is these online platforms, right? The biggest ones like Instagram, TikTok, you can see any moment of day who's doing what where. So that's the essence of what we do.
Yeah, thank you. And how does it work with your platform? And do you have some examples so it's for people, they see it?
Yeah, so like, you know, imagine this one cool project that we work with. It's a coral restoration project, right? And they are doing great work in and underneath the waterline, but it's all very invisible for donors up until now. What you would normally get is like a certificate saying, hey, great news, you've given to this project, you've adopted a coral. But actually, if you look at what this organization does and what data and great content is actually there, but it's just not being communicated to the other side, right? So we look at that, and then we figure out the best ways to share these things, like pictures, videos, online underwater webcams, where you can literally like tune into the reef just to see how things are going at the moment. Drone imagery of the reefs, high resolution satellite imagery, it's all there. And again, this is all tech, right? To create this kind of content, you need some kind of tech. Then you need to share it, put it somewhere so that people can actually go ahead and see it and kind of connect with it. So yeah, that's it in a very short
yeah,
sense.
and so these are all NGOs. How can they use your platform? How does it work?
Yeah, so any project can come onto the platform, indeed to tell the story of what they are doing.
That can also help. Tech can also help to tell the story, of course.
Exactly. So we have a due diligence panel set up. We will first look at like, is this a genuinely good organization, and then we can get started. raise funds from our donors. So we work with some of the biggest brands here in the Benelux currently. But then you can also use the tech to tell, towards the donors that you already have in a much more personal way, what is actually kind of going on.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. And what about the data? And then I move to Martin also, and maybe also on Mike, because we have seen that we work in all kinds of transitions with our foundation. And number one, of course, is about collaboration. But then you also have a thingy with data sharing. Everyone is sitting on their own data. It's outdated. They build their own digital graveyards, we always say, because they always want to collect their data. So also to Martin, how do you see this in this subject? How can we use the data better? Mike? Maybe Mike also has, sorry, Mike. Oh,
Well, data
difficult.
sharing is one of the
Yeah.
parts of that competition. And I can imagine that on Sumthing, there are several coral restoration projects going on. Sorry. So there are a lot of same projects going on. Do they share their data? Yes or no? You might go and think, and that's, I think, where the collaboration can bring real things. Share the knowledge, like in WildHub. So within these projects, that there are coming more out, that they learn from each other, and that's effective scaling or weaving, bring them together. And I think we have an opportunity there.
Yeah, weaving. Yeah.
One thing, and in fact, these are competing NGOs. They have the same subject, probably the same audience, running for the same money to collect, to do their projects. So they can learn. But the thing is, if you look at other businesses, well, other even beyond conservationists, that, for example, if you look at the electronic patient dossier, that has been a terrible area in the Netherlands, competing IT companies to bring that to the hospitals. None of them succeeded. Until there's one company, there was one company that understood that let them all have their own IT platform.
Yeah.
Let them work with their own IT platform, but let's agree upon the fact how we share data so we get the patient, and that's the common goal. How do we get our patients from ill to better? And that's a process. So if you're going to look at the processes, then you force them to go in cooperation. So to optimize the process itself. And that's, if we want to look at the process of restoring nature, I think we have to look at the process that need to be done and then connect those peoples via data sharing.
Yeah.
It's a real opportunity. The electronic patient dossier is a hell of a success at this moment in the Netherlands, working that way. So doctors have their own dossier, do their thing, but every process they hand over to an hospital, the data is traveled with them. Yeah. But if the hospital does something, the data comes back. So it's data sharing on a level that you bring and give and take what you need to optimize your processes. And don't start again with trying to build one platform for it. No. Use your own platforms for it. And I hope that we are looking at our monitoring tools, which have been built in Nature First, that are going to be used. But I'm pretty sure there are some better tools, other tools that people are used to work with. So I think we have to start thinking about that same issue. If we want to scale it up, let's start think about how can all these solutions share their data together.
Yeah.
So we can plug in different modules in all these different parts. That's about data sharing, what I would really love to see.
Yeah, wow.
Collaboration.
It's data collaboration. Yeah.
Imagine data sharing using the same platform or tech, but focusing on something like around funding availability, because I realize a lot of smaller organizations I've interacted with, they always say, we are looking for money. And at the end of the day, it turns out that they were looking at the wrong places, or they didn't have full information about available funding. And people are surprised. If you are an NGO, people are surprised when I say, and I'm not bragging, is the truth. There has never been as much funding available for conservation ever in the history of the world than now. There
Yeah.
is so much funding. The
hear
challenge is
this?
actually
Yeah.
assessing it and deploying it on the ground. It's not lack of funding, because there are bilateral, there are multilateral, there are individual high net worth philanthropic. It's amazingly flooded, but a lot of organizations do not know how to assess that. So having a data sharing platform where people can say, you can access 5 million a year, but you don't meet the threshold. But if you band up with 5 people, you meet the threshold. It will be beneficial, I think, and I will be happy to support such.
Oh, that is nice. But doesn't your platform work like this? I mean, can you make a deal here? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like,
Collaboration.
we see that time and time again, right? It's like you said, on your own, you're too small to play with the big players in this space. Like what we see, for example, a practical example, like I'm working or talking to like the biggest travel platform in the world, right? Billions of euros every quarter move from one place to the other. There's plenty of people that want to support local initiatives at the place where they are. But the initiatives at the table are all too small to integrate with, such a massive platform. So you need to kind of say, hey, we're all in one place. And then all of a sudden, it's very easy to create such an integration. So indeed, like coming together, it grows the pie for all involved, I think.
Wow.
I think there is a point to Martin's point as well, in terms of people are so used to using their own systems, right?
Yeah.
If you look at it from a behavior change point of view, I mean, to get people active on WildHub, it really resonates with what you said, Sonja, about like you're at the end of your project and now the sharing is started. I mean, we're 5 years in and now, everything's rolling and I see people doing their thing and it's all thriving, which is amazing. But it takes so much time to build that behavior. So I think there's something really powerful to what Martin says about, allowing people to use their own platforms, but coming together then and find a common way of using it. Yeah, that's just one.
I feel a new project coming up, don't you? You want to join? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I think I need to wrap up, or don't I? Because I truly like the discussion. How many minutes do I have? Organization. 5? Oh, yes, 5. Okay. Okay, so we're wrapping it up already, but maybe if you have some question, now is your time. Yeah, that's nice. Really have to throw that, and I'm having this weird wild mic. I think I'm not. Here it comes, okay? Almost Menno.
All right.
Still Menno.
I've been enthralled listening to all Trevor Eek, Psychologists Without Borders. And I wanted to say these platforms we've seen a lot in, especially in the United States, there's Key Conservation, there's Open Futures Coalition, there's the platforms you've mentioned, WildHub. And a lot of people I know are a little bit platform burned out. So what do you have to say to those people who are trying to decide where the hell do I go? What do I say? And is this another password and login that I'm going to forget eventually?
That's a very good question. Platform burnout. I like that word. I think, Martin, you have the answer because that is what exactly, or maybe who has the answer to platform burnout? Single point of truth.
Burnout, so I don't know.
Who wants to answer this? Yeah,
well, just a little bit, and I'll let the rest take your turn as well. But if it's just a platform, it's not enough. It needs to be an identity, needs to be a sense of belonging there. And I know I take the lens of, psychology and organizational psychology here, maybe, or as a behaviorist, but yeah, people need to feel seen, heard, acknowledged for their input, their contributions. And yes, there are many different platforms. Definitely it needs to create value as well. I think at WildHub, what we brought to the table is that we welcome everyone who's linked to conservation professionally. So wherever you are in the world, whatever kind of specialization you have, you're welcome. Whereas other platforms or communities are maybe connecting conservationists to tech people or have a more specific target audience. But yeah, that would be my little reply to that, if that makes sense.
Maybe to add to that, an advice maybe for everyone: build less. Like, build first before you build anything. Look, is it already there? And if it is, can I create a simple connection to it, these systems? Please do it. Like, especially now with you have your LLMs in your code base, and you can just write code as a maniac, but don't do it. First, look at what's already there. We personally in the company, we have a saying, because sometimes people think of code or tech as an asset, right? In the business sense, the balance sheet, it's an asset, something that we have. But in our company, we think of it as debt, because you have to maintain it, you have to take care of it, and that grows over time. And which is why a lot of tech platforms start out, it looks great after go live, but then 2-3 years later, all of a sudden, it isn't maintained anymore. So just to add to that, indeed, build only what's needed and look at what's already there.
Well,
May I
it's my turn. Yeah.
If you even if you come to the conclusion, I have to build a platform, it's not there, you cannot find it, or parts of it, then build it in such a way that it's open, so that it can be interconnected to all kinds of other platforms. And well, let's be honest, all the data in the platform, most of the time, it's not the platform owner that really owns the data, that's somebody else. It's the patient in a doctor's platform which owns his data. It's not a doctor. That's stupid. So keep that in mind. So that's the reason why you need to keep it open, that is interchangeable, that you can have this patient move from one doctor to the other doctor to a complete other platform without all the hustle that is needed if this data is kept by the doctor.
Yeah, that's very nice. Okay, so then this is a nice wrap up with, when I wrap this session up, I've learned a lot, by the way, I hope you as well. So first of all, for collaboration, first to Laurens, you need to let go of some control, look for partners, and also let go of some ego. And then when you look for partners, then I watched Thirza, you go to her platform, wildhub.com, then you have to build trust, and you have to build trust, and you have to build trust. And when you have this trust and you want to work together, please think of the global south and make sure that you have a trusting relationship with them and make them grow. Let your ego go a little bit, and then build capacity, build capacity, build capacity. And then in the end, if you have your whole trustworthy network and you want to go for some money, then look for a platform and go to Michael, who has a lot of experience in this and knows where the money is. And then when you're all there, do not build your own platform. No, look at your processes. And if you have to build your own platform, make it open. Did I forget anything? No? Ah. Thank you. Of course, the lady and the gentleman are still here tonight. So if you have questions, go to them. I have a present for you. It's very nice. I think it has to do something with bees. Bees and chocolates, the most important things in life.